The Grand Assembly Hall had stood for 200,000 years. Its walls were made from the bones of dead stars, compressed into crystal that glowed with soft light. 4,000 species had built it together, long before humans had learned to make fire. It was the heart of galactic civilization. It was where peace was kept. Today it would become the place where humanity died. Ambassador Yellen Vasquez stood at her podium and watched the votes appear on the massive display above her head. Each light represented a species. Green meant safety, red meant death. The red lights were spreading like blood in water. She kept her face calm. Her hands did not shake. She had known this day would come. They all had. The Velthari Dominion votes in favor of the motion, announced the speaker. A being made of living metal who had held this position for 9,000 years. The Kree Collective votes in favor. The Mendari Empire votes in favor. Yellen counted the votes in her head. 3,000 and climbing. The motion needed a simple majority to pass. They had passed that number an hour ago. Now they were just piling on, making sure humanity understood how alone they were. She looked around the vast chamber. Thousands of alien faces looked back at her. Some were made of flesh, some were made of light. Some existed in dimensions she could not see. All of them feared her people. All of them wanted humans gone. A delegate from the Uri Syndicate rose to speak. He was a tall creature covered in silver scales, and his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Let the record show what humanity has done," he said. "In 300 years, they have spread to 47 worlds. They have formed alliances with 63 species. They have taught their language to our children. They have filled our networks with their stories and their songs. They call this friendship. We call it invasion." Yellen wanted to laugh. Humans had done nothing but exist. They had traded fairly. They had kept their promises. They had helped species in need. And for this, they would be outlawed. The Uri delegate was not finished. Worst of all, they have spread their disease of thought. They teach something called democracy. They tell other species that rulers should be chosen by the ruled. They tell workers they deserve fairness. They tell the young they can question the old. He slammed his clawed hand on his podium. This is not culture. This is a weapon. Yellen finally spoke. "May I respond?" The speaker considered this for a long moment. "You may." She stepped forward. Every eye and sensor in the chamber turned to her. She was a small woman with gray hair and dark skin, and she looked like nothing special. That was the problem with humans. They never looked like the threat they were. 300 years ago, your ships found Earth, she said. We were fighting a war among ourselves. We had just discovered how to split the atom. You looked at us and saw animals. Dangerous animals, but animals. You debated whether to destroy us then. The chamber was silent. This was old history, but it was not often spoken aloud. You decided to let us live, Yellen continued, not out of kindness. You thought we would destroy ourselves. You gave us 50 years. We did not destroy ourselves. You gave us 100 years. We built ships that could reach your stars. You let us into your council because you were afraid of what would happen if you did not. She paused. You have always been afraid of us. That fear is why we are here today. Not because of anything we have done. Because of what you think we might do. The Ori delegate hissed. You admit it. You are a threat. Every species is a threat, Yellen said. The Velthari burned 100 worlds in their expansion. The Krix consumed 3 intelligent species before they were stopped. The Mendari still practice genetic slavery. You did not outlaw them. You welcomed them. Because they were old. Because they were familiar. Because they had already done their damage. She spread her hands. Humanity's crime is being new. Our crime is being different. Our crime is making you uncomfortable. She smiled and there was no warmth in it. Very well. If that is our crime, we will accept our sentence. The vote continued. More red lights. The number climbed past 3,500. Yellen watched it rise with something that looked like peace on her face. A delegate from a minor species stood up. The Turani were small beings with large eyes, and they had been humanity's first friends in the galaxy. Their ambassador's voice was shaking. We vote against the motion, she said. Let the record show that the Turani stand with humanity, whatever comes next. 11 more species voted against. 12 in total out of more than 4,000. It was not even a gesture. It was nothing. The final count appeared on the display. 3,847 in favor, 12 against, 131 abstaining. The motion passed. The Galactic Council has spoken, the speaker announced. Humanity is hereby declared a prohibited species. All human vessels and colonies within Council space must evacuate within 30 standard days. After this period, any human found in Council space may be detained or destroyed by any Council member. Any species that aids or shelters humans will face sanctions. Any species that trades with humans will face sanctions. This decree is effective immediately. Yellen bowed her head. Not in defeat, in acknowledgement. We understand, she said. We will leave your space. We will not return unless invited, and we will remember this day. She turned and walked toward the exit. The delegates watched her go. Some felt triumph, some felt relief. A few, a very few, felt something close to shame. An old being blocked her path near the door. He was called Theron, and he belonged to a species so ancient they had forgotten their own name. He had been on the council when humans were first discovered. He had voted to let them live. You accept this too easily, he said quietly. Yellen looked up at him. She was so small compared to his towering form. Do I? Your species does not surrender. We have seen your history. You fight until you cannot fight anymore, and then you fight some more. His many eyes studied her face. Why are you not fighting now? She smiled. It was a real smile this time, with something hidden behind it. Perhaps we have learned wisdom. Perhaps, Theron said. He did not believe it. Yellen walked past him and out of the chamber. Her staff was waiting for her in the corridor, 12 humans who had served the impossible task of representing their species to a galaxy that hated them. Send the message, she said. Her communications officer nodded. His fingers moved across his device. A single coded transmission went out, bouncing through relay stations across the galaxy, reaching every human settlement within seconds. The message was 2 words: Prometheus awake. Back in the chamber, the celebration had begun. Delegates who had spent centuries in cold silence were actually talking to each other, united by their shared fear and their shared victory. The humans were gone. The threat was over. Theron did not celebrate. He returned to his seat and watched the chaos with ancient eyes. Something was wrong. He had lived long enough to know when a predator was playing dead. He pulled up humanity's file on his personal display. 300 years of data, trade records, diplomatic communications, cultural exports, military assessments. The military file was almost empty. Humans had a small defense force. Nothing impressive. They had never fought a war in space. They had never even threatened anyone. But they had survived everything. Their home planet had nearly killed them a dozen times. They had split the atom and somehow not used it to destroy themselves. They had joined a galaxy full of beings who wanted them dead. And they had smiled and made friends and taught their songs to alien children. Why would a species like that simply accept extinction? Theron looked at the file for a long time. Then he began to search for something he had missed, something everyone had missed. Across the galaxy, the evacuation began. Human ships lifted off from 47 worlds. Millions of people gathered their belongings and said goodbye to neighbors who had been ordered to hate them. Some of those neighbors wept. Some helped them pack. Some turned away and pretended they had never known each other. The ships flew toward the border of Council space. A great exodus was underway. The media networks called it the end of humanity's galactic ambition. No one noticed that the refugees were not afraid. No one noticed that the evacuation was too smooth, too organized, too calm. No one noticed that humanity was not running away. They were going home. And they were taking everything they had learned with them. In the darkness between stars, 1,000 hidden stations received the Prometheus awake signal. Engineers and soldiers and scientists who had spent their entire careers waiting for this moment finally got to work. The council thought they had won. They thought humanity was finished. They had no idea what they had just started. Commander Adisa Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the carrier Defiance and watched the stars slide past. Her ship was surrounded by 1,000 others, all moving in perfect formation toward the edge of council space. To anyone watching, it looked like a retreat. Adisa knew better. "Status report," she said. Her first officer pulled up the display. "All ships accounted for. Refugee transports are ahead of schedule. We will reach the border in 18 days. And the packages? All delivered, every single one." Adisa nodded. She allowed herself a small smile. The council thought they were watching humanity run away with its tail between its legs. They had no idea they were watching the greatest magic trick in galactic history. She turned to address her bridge crew. They were young, most of them, born in space, raised on colony worlds, trained for a war they hoped would never come. They deserved to know why they were not fighting. 200 years ago, she began, our great-grandparents made first contact with alien life. They were excited. They thought they would find friends among the stars. Instead, they found a galaxy that wanted them dead. The crew listened in silence. This was history they knew, but it meant something different now. The Velthari shot down our first diplomatic ship. The Cricks tried to eat our ambassadors. The council debated for 6 years about whether to wipe us out. They decided to let us live, but only because they thought we would kill ourselves. Adisa shook her head. They underestimated us. They always have. She walked to the main display and pulled up a map of the galaxy. Human space was a tiny dot compared to the vast territories of the council species. Our leaders looked at this map and saw the truth. We could not win a war. We could not even survive one. The council had ships that could crack planets. They had weapons that could burn stars. If we fought them, we would lose. Every simulation said the same thing. Every strategy failed. She zoomed in on the tiny dot of human space. So our leaders asked a different question. They asked, how do you defeat an enemy you cannot fight? Her tactical officer leaned forward. You don't fight them at all. Correct. Adisa smiled. You change them. You make them not want to fight you. Or better yet, you make them want to be like you. She pulled up a new display. It showed human cultural exports over the past 200 years. Books translated into alien languages. Music adapted for alien ears. Films and shows shared across the networks. Philosophy taught in alien schools. We could not beat them with weapons, so we beat them with ideas. We sent our artists instead of our soldiers. We sent our teachers instead of our generals. We made them curious about us. We made them like us. She paused. We made some of them love us. A young ensign raised her hand. But they still outlawed us. It didn't work. It worked perfectly, Adisa said. The council outlawed us because our ideas were winning. They banned us because they were afraid their own people would start thinking like humans. That is not a defeat. That is proof that we succeeded. She changed the display again. This time it showed something classified. The crew gasped. Hidden throughout council space in 1,000 secret locations, human operatives were activating protocols that had been dormant for decades. They were not preparing for war. They were preparing to teach. The council thinks that banning humans will stop our ideas from spreading. They are wrong. Our ideas do not need us to carry them. They spread on their own. They live in the minds of every alien who has ever read a human book, or watched a human film, or listened to human music. She pointed to the display. Right now, across the galaxy, our people are revealing themselves. They are opening schools. They are sharing everything we know. Science, medicine, art, philosophy, all of it, free to anyone who wants to learn. The crew stared at her. This was not what they had expected. We are not retreating, Adisa said. We are planting seeds, and those seeds will grow long after we are gone. Far across the galaxy, the seeds were already sprouting. On the industrial world of Keth, a human woman named Sarah Chen had lived among the Kethi for 40 years. She had worked in their factories. She had married one of their people. She had raised children who looked nothing like her. When the ban was announced, her neighbors expected her to flee. Instead, she opened a school. I am not leaving, she told the local authorities when they came to arrest her. This is my home. These are my people. If you want to take me away, you will have to explain to my students why. Her students were Kethi workers who had spent their lives in the factories. Sarah had taught them to read. She had taught them about labor rights. She had taught them that they deserved better than the lives they had been given. When the authorities tried to arrest her, her students blocked the door. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. The authorities called for backup. The backup looked at the crowd and decided they did not want to be the ones to fire on unarmed workers. Sarah was not arrested. Her school stayed open. And the idea of workers demanding rights spread to every factory on the planet. On the garden world of Thelis, a human musician named David Okafor had spent 30 years composing symphonies that blended human and Thelician traditions. His music was played at royal courts. His students included the children of nobles. When the ban was announced, the Thelician queen summoned him to her palace. "You must leave," she told him. "If you stay, I cannot protect you." David bowed. "Your Majesty, with respect, I am not asking for protection. I am asking for permission to give you a gift before I go." The gift was a composition, his final symphony. It was called The Bridge Between Stars, and it told the story of two peoples learning to understand each other. It was beautiful enough to make the queen weep. "Why give this to us?" she asked. "We are sending you away." "Because music does not care about borders," David said. "Because this symphony belongs to both our peoples now. Because one day someone will play it and remember that humans and Thelicians were once friends." The queen did not reply. But she ordered that the symphony be preserved in the royal archives, protected forever. On 100 other worlds, similar scenes played out. Humans revealing their true purpose. Humans giving away everything they had learned. Humans planting seeds that would grow for centuries. Back on the Defiance, Adisa received reports from all of them. She read each one carefully, memorizing the names of people who were sacrificing everything for a plan they would never see completed. Her communications officer approached her. "Commander, we have a transmission from Ambassador Vasquez." "Put it through." Yellen Vasquez appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. "Commander, I need to inform you of a development. 12 species voted against our ban. They have reached out to me privately. They want to know what happens next." Edisa leaned forward. "What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth, that we are not angry, that we do not want revenge, that we are building something new, and they are welcome to join us." "How did they respond?" Yellen smiled. "They are afraid, but they are also curious. That is exactly what we need." Adisa nodded slowly. The plan was working. It would take time. It would take patience. But it was working. "Commander," her first officer said, "we are being followed." Adisa looked at the tactical display. A small fleet of council ships was trailing them at a distance. Not attacking, just watching. "They want to make sure we actually leave," she said. "They want to witness our defeat." "Should we be concerned?" Adisa shook her head. "Let them watch. Let them see our retreat. Let them report back that humanity has accepted its fate." She turned back to the stars. "They will understand the truth soon enough." The convoy continued toward the border. Millions of humans leaving the galaxy that had rejected them. To the council observers, it looked like the end of a story. It was actually the beginning. In the quiet spaces between stars, construction ships were already building. In hidden laboratories, scientists were already working. In coded transmissions, plans were already being made. The council had given humanity 30 days to leave. They thought they were setting a deadline. They were actually giving humanity time to prepare. Day 30 came. The last human ship crossed the border. The council declared victory. The observers went home. And then the messages started arriving. Across the galaxy, on every world where humans had lived, alien citizens began receiving communications. They were not threats. They were not demands. They were invitations. "Humanity has built a new home," the messages said. "It is open to anyone who wants to think freely, live freely, and build a better future. We are not your enemies. We never were. And our door is always open." The council tried to block the messages. They failed. The messages were everywhere, spreading through networks that humans had helped build, carried by systems that humans had helped design. The ban had been meant to isolate humanity. Instead, it had given humanity a reason to reach out to everyone who had ever wondered if there was something better beyond the borders of their empires. The seeds had been planted. Now they would grow, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the ban, the galaxy was burning, not with fire, but with ideas. On the factory world of Keth, Workers had seized control of 3 industrial complexes. They were not fighting. They were simply refusing to work until their demands were met. They called it a strike, a human word that had no translation in the Kethi language. It was spreading to other worlds. On Thelis, the queen had been forced to create something called a parliament after her nobles demanded a voice in government. They had learned about it from human books. The queen was not happy, but she was wise enough to bend rather than break. On a dozen other worlds, similar changes were happening. Citizens were asking questions. Subjects were demanding rights. The old order was cracking, and human fingerprints were everywhere. The council was in chaos. "This is unacceptable," declared High Marshal Vorak of the Velthari Dominion. He was a massive creature with 4 arms and scales like black iron. He had led the push to ban humanity. Now he was watching his victory turn to ash. "We removed the humans. Why are their ideas still spreading?" The speaker's metal face showed no emotion. "Because ideas cannot be banned. We removed the source, but the infection had already spread." "Then we must cure it," Vorak growled. "Send peacekeeping forces to these worlds. Restore order." "We have tried," another delegate said. She was Tarani, one of the 12 species who had voted against the ban. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "Our peacekeepers reported that the protesters are not violent. They simply refuse to obey. They sit in the streets and sing human songs. They hold signs with human words. They smile at our soldiers and offer them food." She tilted her head. "How do you fight an enemy that refuses to fight back?" Vorak slammed his fist on his podium. The sound echoed through the chamber. "This is a war. Treat it as one. If we massacre peaceful protesters, we prove everything humanity said about us," the Tarani replied. "We prove that we are tyrants who fear our own citizens. Is that what you want the galaxy to see?" Vorak had no answer. The speaker raised a hand for silence. "There is another concern. Our scouts have reported activity at the human border. They are building something." The chamber went quiet. A display appeared above them, showing images captured by long-range sensors. What they saw made even Vorak pause. The humans had not been idle during their exile. Along the border of their territory, they had constructed a defensive network unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Thousands of stations, millions of automated weapons platforms, a wall of steel and energy that stretched across light years. "They built this in 6 months, the speaker said. "Our analysts estimate it would take most species 1,000 years to accomplish the same." "Then we must attack now," Vorak said, "before they grow stronger." "There is more," the speaker continued. "They are not hiding it. They want us to see, and they have invited our representatives to inspect it personally." This was unexpected. The chamber buzzed with confused voices. Why would humans show their enemies their defenses? The old being called Theron rose to speak. He had been quiet for 6 months, watching and thinking. Now he had something to say. "I recommend we accept the invitation," he said. "We need to understand what we are dealing with. Our assumptions about humanity have been wrong from the beginning. Perhaps it is time to look with clear eyes." The vote was close, but it passed. A delegation would be sent to the human border. Theron would lead it personally. 2 weeks later, his ship arrived at the coordinates the humans had provided. What he found there took his breath away. The defensive network was impressive, but it was not what shocked him. It was the ships waiting to greet him. Hundreds of them. Not warships, but transports. Civilian vessels from dozens of species. They were entering human space. Voluntarily. Admiral Chen Wei welcomed Theron aboard her flagship, the Steadfast. She was a small woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. She shook his hand in the human fashion and smiled. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this takes courage." Theron studied her. "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Anger, threats, demands for revenge." Chen Wei laughed softly. "We have had 6 months to be angry. It passes. What remains is the work." She gestured for him to follow her. "Come, let me show you something." She led him through the ship to an observation deck. Through the windows, he could see a planet below. It was green and blue, covered in cities that sparkled in the sunlight. "This is New Geneva," Chen Wei said, "the capital of what we are calling the Open Hand Federation. Population, 400 million humans and—" She paused. 200,000 others. Theron stared at her. Others? Aliens. Beings from Council space who chose to join us. Scientists who wanted freedom to research. Artists who wanted freedom to create. Workers who wanted freedom to live. She turned to face him. We did not steal them. We did not trick them. We simply opened our doors and let them choose. The Council will call this an act of war. The Council will call it whatever serves their purposes. But the truth is simple. We are building something new, something better, and anyone who wants to help is welcome. She took him on a tour of the station. He saw humans and aliens working side by side. He saw schools where children of different species learned together. He saw laboratories where scientists shared knowledge freely, without borders or secrets. And then she showed him something that changed everything. It was a museum, a human museum, dedicated to human history. But it was not the glorious version that species usually presented to outsiders. It was the truth. Theron walked through halls filled with records of human atrocities, wars that killed millions, weapons that could have ended their civilization, hatred and cruelty and destruction on a scale that made even his ancient heart ache. Why show me this? He asked. Chen Wei stood beside him, looking at images of a burning city. Because we are not asking you to trust us. Trust must be earned. We are asking you to understand us. She pointed to the display. This is what we were. This is the darkness that lives inside us. We are capable of terrible things. We know this better than anyone. She turned to face him. But we chose to be something else. We looked at what we were, and we decided it was not what we wanted to be, and we have spent centuries trying to become better. Theron was silent for a long moment. The Council fears you because you are strong. The Council fears us because we are different, because we change, because we make others change. Chen Wei smiled sadly. They are right to fear that. Change is frightening, but it is also necessary. Nothing survives forever by staying the same. She led him to the final exhibit. It was a simple display, a list of names, millions of them, scrolling endlessly. These are the humans who died so that we could be here today, she said. Soldiers and civilians, heroes and ordinary people. They gave everything so that their children might have a chance at something better. She looked at Theron with eyes full of old pain. We do not want to add more names to this list. We do not want war. We have had enough war to last us forever. Then what do you want? We want to live. We want to build. We want to create something that matters. She spread her hands. And we want to do it with anyone who shares that dream, even our enemies, especially our enemies. Theron left the human station 3 days later. He had seen things that challenged everything he thought he knew. He had spoken with aliens who had fled the Council to join humanity. He had watched human children play with children of species that had voted to destroy them. When he returned to Council space, his report caused an uproar. They are not preparing for war, he told the assembly. They are preparing for peace, a peace that does not include us, because we have chosen to be their enemy. He paused. But they have not closed the door. They are waiting for us to change our minds. Vorek laughed bitterly. And you believe them? This is a trick, a deception. Perhaps, Theron said, but I saw no deception in the eyes of their children. I saw no deception in the aliens who chose to join them. I saw no deception in the records of their own darkest history. He shook his head slowly. I have lived for 50,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species destroy themselves and each other, and I have never seen anything like what humanity is building. The chamber was silent. We outlawed them because we were afraid, Theron continued. We were right to be afraid, but not because they would destroy us. He looked around at the assembled delegates. We should be afraid because they are showing us a better way, and if we do not change, we will be left behind. The seeds that humanity had planted were growing, and the Council was beginning to realize that they could not stop them. The only question was whether they would choose to grow too, or whether they would wither in the shadow of something new. 2 years had passed since the ban. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Curious, as they had come to call themselves, had grown from 12 species to 200. They met in secret, shared information, and dreamed of a different future. Some of them had already sent citizens to join the Open Hand Federation. Others were waiting, watching, gathering courage. The council was fracturing. Every session brought new arguments. The hardliners, led by High Marshal Vorak, demanded military action. The moderates wanted negotiation. The curious wanted something that sounded almost like surrender. And Ambassador Yellen Vasquez had just done something incredibly stupid. She had returned to council space. The transport ship that carried her was small and unarmed. It crossed the border in the dead of night, running silent through shipping lanes that had once been familiar. She was not alone. A handful of aides traveled with her, along with something far more valuable than weapons. She carried gifts. Her first meeting was on a station orbiting a world called Thesser Prime. The Thessari were an old species, proud and conservative. They had voted for the ban without hesitation. But their economy was failing. Their young were leaving for human space. Their future was crumbling. The Thessari High Chancellor met her in a private chamber, away from cameras and witnesses. He was a being of living crystal, and his faceted eyes reflected her image 1,000 times. "You should not have come," he said. "If anyone discovers you are here, I will be forced to arrest you." Yellen smiled. "Then we should talk quickly." She placed a data crystal on the table between them. The Chancellor stared at it but did not touch it. "What is this?" "Everything we know about hydroponics, atmospheric processing, and sustainable agriculture. Your food production has declined by 30% in the past decade. This will reverse that decline within 5 years." The Chancellor's crystal form flickered with surprise. "Why would you give us this?" "Because your people are hungry. Because hunger leads to desperation. Because desperation leads to war." Yellen leaned forward. "We do not want war. We want you to survive. We want you to thrive. A strong Thessari people is better for everyone than a desperate one. There must be conditions. No conditions. Take it. Use it. Tell no one where it came from." She stood. "We ask only one thing in return, and it is not a demand. It is a request. Name it. When the time comes to choose between the old way and a new way, remember this moment. Remember that humans helped you when they had every reason to hate you." She left before he could respond. The data crystal remained on the table. The Chancellor stared at it for a long time before picking it up. Yellen's tour continued. She visited 17 worlds in 3 weeks, always in secret, always bearing gifts. Medical technology for a species suffering from a plague. Engineering data for a species whose infrastructure was failing. Art and literature for a species whose culture was dying under the weight of conformity. She asked for nothing. She demanded nothing. She simply gave and moved on. Word spread quietly. The hardliners heard rumors of a human agent moving through council space. They sent hunters after her. Assassins from the Velthari Dominion, the best killers in the galaxy. They found her on her 18th world. The attack came at night. Yellen was meeting with representatives from a species called the Morathi, gentle beings who communicated through color and light. They had almost finished their conversation when the door exploded inward. 3 Velthari assassins entered the room. They were huge, armed with weapons that could cut through steel. Their leader pointed at Yellen. "Ambassador Vasquez, by order of High Marshal Vorak, you are under arrest for crimes against galactic peace." Yellen stood slowly. Her Morathi hosts trembled, their bodies flashing with colors of fear. Her aides moved to protect her, but she waved them back. "I am unarmed," she said. "I am not resisting. There is no need for violence." The assassin laughed. "Violence is what we do, human. We were not sent to arrest you. We were sent to make an example." He raised his weapon. Yellen closed her eyes. The shot never came. Instead, there was a crash, then shouting, then silence. Yellen opened her eyes. The 3 assassins were on the ground, unconscious or dead. Standing over them were Morathi citizens, their soft bodies now rigid with determination. They had attacked the assassins with their bare hands, using numbers to overwhelm superior strength. One of them approached Yellen. His colors were calm now, though tinged with something that might have been pride. "You came to help us," he said. "We could not let them hurt you." Yellen stared at him. She had not expected this. She had been prepared to die. Why? The council will punish you for this. The Marathi's colors shifted to something warm, something that looked almost like a smile. We read your books. We learned your word for this. We call it friendship. She was evacuated within the hour. Her ship fled toward human space with Velthari pursuit craft closing behind. The race was close. Too close. They crossed the border with seconds to spare. The pursuing ships pulled back, unwilling to enter human territory. Yellen collapsed into a chair on the bridge. She was wounded. A piece of debris had caught her during the escape, opening a gash across her ribs. Her medical team worked quickly, but the damage was done. She would live, but she would carry the scar forever. Was it worth it? Her aide asked quietly. Yellen thought about the 17 worlds she had visited, the gifts she had given, the conversations she had had, the Marathi who had saved her life. Yes, she said, it was worth it. Back in council space, the attack on Yellen became a scandal. The Marathi filed a formal complaint, accusing the Velthari of violating their sovereignty. The curious faction used the incident to argue that the hardliners had gone too far. And in the shadows, High Marshal Vorek was planning something much larger. The humans are corrupting our allies, he told his war council. They are spreading their poison even from exile. We must end this before it is too late. His admirals nodded. They had been preparing for this moment for months. The largest fleet ever assembled was waiting at the edge of council space. 10,000 ships, enough firepower to crack planets and burn stars. We will strike their homeworld, Vorek said. We will destroy their defenses and occupation their territory. We will show the galaxy what happens to species who challenge the order of things. The fleet launched 3 days later. 10,000 ships moving in perfect formation toward human space. The galaxy held its breath. Admiral Chen Wei received the report on the bridge of the Steadfast. She read it twice, making sure she understood. Then she turned to her officers. They are coming, she said. Her tactical officer pulled up the display. The enemy fleet was massive, a wall of death crossing the void toward them. The human defenses were impressive, but they were not enough to stop this. Admiral, we should activate Final Light. Final Light, the last resort, a weapon system that could destroy the incoming fleet in a single strike. It was humanity's ace in the hole, the thing that would ensure their survival no matter what. Chen Wei was silent for a long moment. She thought about all the people who would die if she gave the order, not just humans, council soldiers who were following orders, young beings who had never hurt anyone, families waiting at home for loved ones to return. No, she said. Her officers stared at her. Admiral, we will not fire first. We will not fire at all. She straightened in her chair. Order all ships to power down weapons and drop shields. We will face them unarmed. Admiral, that's suicide. Perhaps, Chen Wei's voice was calm, but we did not survive 300 years of exile by being what they expected. We did not build the open hand by answering hate with hate. She looked at each of her officers in turn. If we destroy them, we prove everything they believed about us. We become the monsters they fear. Is that what we survived for? Is that what our ancestors died for? No one answered. We will show them who we really are, Chen Wei said. We will show them that humans can choose peace even when war is easier. We will show them that we are not their enemies. She paused. And if they destroy us anyway, then at least we will die as ourselves. She opened a channel to the approaching fleet. Her words went out across the void, broadcast to every ship in the Armada. Council forces, this is Admiral Chen Wei of the Open Hand Federation. We will not fire on you. We will not resist you. Our weapons are cold and our shields are down. If you must destroy us, we will die proving that we were never what you feared. We ask only that you remember this moment. Remember that we had the power to fight and we chose not to. Remember that we chose peace. The message ended. The fleet continued its approach, and the galaxy watched to see what would happen next. The Council fleet approached the human border like a wave of death. 10,000 ships, their weapons charged, their crews ready for battle. At their head flew the Velthari flagship Conqueror, with High Marshal Vorek himself commanding from the bridge. He expected resistance. He expected defiance. He expected the humans to fight like the dangerous animals they were. Instead, he found silence. The human defense stations floated in space with their weapons dark. The human ships hung motionless with their shields down. Not a single targeting system was active. Not a single missile was armed. Admiral Chen Wei's message played on repeat, broadcast across all frequencies. We will not fire. We will not resist. If you must destroy us, we will die, proving that we were never what you feared. Vorak stared at the display, his four hands gripping the arms of his command chair. This was not what he had planned for. This was not how wars were supposed to work. "What are they doing?" his first officer asked. "They are trying to make us hesitate," Vorak growled. "It is a trick. They want us to lower our guard so they can strike. Marshal, their weapons are genuinely offline. Our sensors confirm it. They are completely defenseless." Vorak's eyes narrowed. "Then they are fools. Give the order to attack." His first officer hesitated. "Marshal, I gave you an order. The crews are watching this broadcast. They are asking questions. Many of them have never fired on unarmed ships before. Some are refusing to take their stations." Vorak rose from his chair, his massive form filling the bridge. "This is war. There is no room for weakness. Marshal, the entire galaxy is watching. The humans are broadcasting everything. If we massacre defenseless ships, then we prove that we are willing to do what is necessary," Vorak roared. "Give the order." The first officer's hand moved toward the communication panel. It stopped halfway. His face was pale, his eyes uncertain. Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out. Commanders argued with their crews. Officers debated with each other. Soldiers who had spent their lives training for battle found themselves unable to fire on enemies who would not fight back. On a small corvette near the edge of the formation, a young captain named Thressa made her decision. She was Torani, one of the species that had voted against the human ban. She had joined the military to protect people, not to slaughter them. She opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Captain Thressa of the Starlight. I am breaking formation. I will not fire on unarmed vessels. Any ship that feels the same may follow me." Her ship turned away from the fleet, its engines burning bright against the darkness. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then another ship broke formation, and another, and another. Within an hour, 1,000 ships had refused to attack. They gathered around Thressa's small corvette like children seeking protection. Their captains were crying, laughing, praying to gods they barely believed in. They had just committed treason. They had just saved their souls. Vorak watched the mutiny spread with cold fury. His fleet was falling apart before his eyes. His great victory was becoming his greatest failure. "Target the deserters," he ordered. "If they will not fight the enemy, they are the enemy." His weapons officer turned to look at him. "Marshal, those are our own people. They are traitors. They are our brothers and sisters, our children." The weapons officer stood from his station. "I will not fire on them. Relieve me if you must, but I will not." One by one, the bridge crew stepped away from their stations. They stood in silence, refusing to obey, refusing to participate in something they could not live with. Vorak was alone. He could have taken the weapons station himself. He could have fired the shots that would begin the massacre. He had the authority. He had the power. But as he looked at the humans floating defenseless in space, waiting peacefully for death, something broke inside him. He had spent his entire life believing that strength was everything, that the weak existed to serve the strong, that mercy was foolishness and compassion was weakness. But the humans had strength. They had built defenses that could have fought back. They had weapons that could have killed, and they had chosen not to use them. They had chosen to trust in something other than force. It was either the bravest thing Vorak had ever seen, or the stupidest. He was no longer sure there was a difference. "Stand down," he said quietly. "All ships, stand down." The order spread through the fleet. Weapons went cold. Tensions eased. The great battle that was supposed to end humanity simply didn't happen. On Concordia Prime, the council was in chaos. The hardliners were screaming for Vorak's head. The curious were demanding immediate negotiations. The moderates were simply trying to keep the assembly from tearing itself apart. Then a broadcast interrupted everything. Ambassador Yelena Vasquez appeared on every screen in the chamber. She was still recovering from her wounds, speaking from a hospital bed on New Geneva. Her face was pale, but her voice was strong. "Citizens of the Council," she said, "today you witnessed something unprecedented. Your fleet came to destroy us. We chose not to fight, and your own people decided that murder was too high a price for victory." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We are not your enemies. We never were. We are simply different. We believe in things that frighten you. Choice, freedom, the right of every being to decide their own future." She smiled weakly. "We do not expect you to agree with us. We only ask that you stop trying to kill us for disagreeing with you." She outlined humanity's offer: full reconciliation, shared technology, open borders, membership in the open hand for any species that wanted to join, trade and cooperation with those who preferred to keep their distance. "We ask only one thing in return," she said: reform, not revolution, not surrender, simply a willingness to let your citizens choose their own futures, a willingness to let them question, a willingness to let them grow. The offer sparked 3 days of debate. The hardliners fought against it with everything they had, but their credibility was shattered. Their fleet had refused to follow orders. Their philosophy of strength through force had failed when it mattered most. The vote came at midnight on the 3rd day. It was close, agonizingly close. Species that had hated each other for millennia found themselves on the same side. Ancient alliances crumbled. New ones formed. The motion passed by 4 votes. The Galactic Council would reform, slowly, painfully, with setbacks and struggles and moments when it seemed like everything would fall apart. But it would change, and humanity would be there to help. 50 years later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The old council was gone, replaced by something messier and louder and more chaotic. It was called the Galactic Assembly, and it operated on principles that would have seemed alien a century before. Representatives were chosen by their people. Laws were debated openly. Disagreements were settled with words instead of weapons. It was not perfect. Wars still happened. Injustice still existed. Old hatreds died slowly, and new ones sometimes took their place. But beings across the galaxy now believed they had the right to demand better. They believed they could change things. They believed their voices mattered. Human fingerprints were everywhere. Human words had entered alien languages. Human stories were told on 1,000 worlds. Human ideas had become simply ideas, belonging to everyone who believed in them. On a distant world at the edge of explored space, a young alien girl sat in a classroom and listened to her teacher. He was human, an old man with white hair and kind eyes. He had come to her planet 20 years ago, when it was still a backwater colony with no schools and no hope. Now it had both. "Teacher," the girl asked, "why did humans help us? The stories say your people could have conquered the galaxy. You had the power. Why didn't you use it?" The old man smiled. He had been asked this question many times by many students, on many worlds. His answer was always the same. "Because we wanted you to choose us," he said, "not fear us." The girl thought about this for a long time. She thought about it that night as she looked up at the stars. She thought about it years later when she became a teacher herself. She thought about it when she told her own students the story of how the galaxy changed. She never forgot the lesson. Neither did anyone else. On Earth, in a garden that had once been a battlefield, there stood a monument. It was made of stone from 100 worlds, each piece placed by hands of different species. On it was carved a simple message in 1,000 languages. We could have been conquerors. We chose to be friends. Humans had never been the strongest species in the galaxy. They had never been the smartest or the oldest or the most advanced. But they had been the first to understand a simple truth. The greatest power was not the power to destroy. It was the power to choose not to. And that made all the difference. The stars burned on, as they always had. But now they burn for everyone. The end.